traveling, it occurs to me, it's really clear, travel, thoughtful travel, is well worth the time and the money. And I'd like to take just a few minutes to explain to you why. Travel opens us up to the wonders of our world in so many ways. It helps you appreciate nature. I mean, for me, a great day is walking high in the Swiss Alps, like tight-roping on a ridge. On one side, I've got lakes stretching all the way to Germany. On the other side, the most incredible alpine panorama anywhere, the Eiger, Monch, and Jungfrau, cut-glass peaks against that blue sky. And ahead of me, I hear the long legato tones of an Alp horn, announcing that the helicopter-stocked mountain hut is open, it's just around the corner, and the coffee schnapps is on. That connects you with nature, and it connects you with culture. And when I'm traveling, I love this whole idea that travel connects us with culture. When I'm traveling, I find that there's different slices of culture that I never realized people could be evangelical about. Cheese, for instance. You go to France, and they're crazy about cheese. I like being a bumpkin in my travels. For me, cheese was always just orange in the shape of the bread. There you go, cheese sandwich. And then I meet these people, and I mean, there's a different cheese for every day of the year. You step into a cheese shop, and it's just a festival of mold. I love going shopping with my Parisian friends. They'll take me into a cheese shop, pull up a moldy wad of goat cheese, take a deep whiff. Oh, Rick, smell this cheese. It smells like the feet of angels. Okay, well, when you're traveling, you open up to new things that might smell like the feet of angels. A great thing about travel is it connects you with people. And, you know, if I'm making a tour or a guidebook or a TV show and I'm not connecting people with people, I'm kind of nervous because it's going to be a flat experience. It's people that really, you know, make your experience vital. That's the mark of a good trip. And it doesn't need to be like earth-shaking encounters. They can be just silly encounters. I was in Italy recently, and I met this little kid, and he was just staring at me. It was kind of rude. Finally, his dad said, "Excuse my son, he stares at Americans." I said, "Well, why is that?" And he said, "Well, last week we were at McDonald's having our hamburger, and my son, noticing the fluffy white bun, said, 'Dad, why do Americans have such soft bread?' And the dad said, 'Son, it's because Americans have no teeth.'" So I showed him my teeth, and I sort of, straightened out a little misunderstanding between peoples there. And it occurred to me there's so many misunderstandings between people, and when we travel, we straighten them out. I don't know about you, but I was raised thinking the world is a pyramid with us on top and everybody else trying to figure it out. And then I traveled, and I realized, we have the American dream. That's a great thing, but other people have their own dream. Norwegians have the Norwegian dream. Bulgarians have the Bulgarian dream. These people have the Sri Lankan dream. Travel wallops my ethnocentricity, and I'm very thankful for that. It's something to celebrate. Our dream is beautiful, but so is theirs. In my travels, I have really been impressed by the amount of pride on this planet. Wonderful pride. I was in Afghanistan once, just in a cafeteria where the backpackers were hanging out. A man sat down next to me, said, "Can I join you?" And I said, "You already have." And he said, "You're an American, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, I'm a professor here in Afghanistan, and I want you to know that a third of the people on this planet eat with spoons and forks like you do. A third of the people eat with chopsticks, and a third of the people eat with their fingers like I do, and we're all civilized just the same." He had a chip on his shoulder. He thought I thought less of him because he ate with his fingers. And that lesson stuck with me. And for the rest of my trips through South Asia, I was aware of that. I went to restaurants, fine restaurants with, well-dressed professional local people that had no spoons and forks. They had like a ceremonial sink in the middle of the restaurant. People would wash their hands and eat using their fingers the way God intended them to be used. It actually became quite natural for me. I had to be retrained when I got home. But these are the lessons you pick up, and it is so fun to change something that you thought was a basic truth. Well into your adulthood, you realize, hey, other people, smart people, can see it differently. I'm impressed how many heroic struggles are going on this planet all the time that I'm completely oblivious to. Every year, 8 or 10 distinct languages go extinct. That's 8 or 10 ethnic groups that lose a long struggle. I was raised thinking Nathan Hale, Ethan Allen, Patrick Henry, they were the ultimate. Well, they're great, but they're certainly not unique. They're a dime a dozen on this planet. It doesn't diminish ours, but it's really important for us to remember in our travels that there are other heroes and other causes. One great way to make your travels more meaningful is to relate to embrace a contemporary Nathan Hale in a different country. Get into it. An easy one is Archbishop Oscar Romero. Go down to San Salvador, El Salvador, and learn about Archbishop Oscar Romero, a present-day Nathan Hale. A few years ago, I was due for a vacation. I was heading for Mazatlan, and I was just needy for a nice stretch of pristine beach, swept free of local riffraff. I was going to have a plastic strap on my wrist, giving me unlimited margaritas, never have to dirty my fingers with coins. You know what that's like? I was ready. And then some friends invited me to go to San Salvador for the 25th anniversary of the assassination of Archbishop Oscar Romero. He marched with his people. He stood by his people during the Civil War that they lost. These were the landless peasants. He said, "I'll probably be killed, and when I'm killed, I'll rise again in my people." And I wanted to see Romero in his people 25 years after his assassination. And I went to El Salvador. 2 days into that trip, I was covered with bug bites, in a sweaty dorm bunk bed, eating rice and beans one day and beans and rice the next. And I was having the greatest travel experience you could ever have. It changed my whole outlook. It was really valuable to me. And I marched with those people. And in El Salvador, we came upon a monument that looks a lot like a monument we all know and love, the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C. It's a knockoff of that memorial, right there in the capital city of El Salvador, with just as many names chipped onto that black granite. The only difference is these are names of people who died fighting you and me. Now, maybe they were communists and we had to kill them all. I don't know. It's not an issue of, what is the reason for that. There's a reality. There's 50,000 widows who died fighting us for a cause. And I want to know that cause. I want to empathize with that cause. I don't need to agree with it, but I want to appreciate it. That's why I went to Iran. A few years ago, I had the great opportunity to go to Iran with a public television TV crew to make a show. People ask me, "Why are you going to Iran?" And I thought about it. Why am I going to Iran? And it occurred to me, I'm going here because I think it's good character to know people before you bomb them. Sometimes we have to kill people, but it should hurt. And it is a nation's inclination to dehumanize its enemies before we go kill them. So I went to Iran. It occurred to me when I was in Iran, I was afraid to go here. And when I got there, I was so glad I had the courage to go there. And I learned once again that fear, and there's a lot of it in our society, fear is, to me, for people who don't get out very much. Now, when you go to Iran, it's a thriving country of 70 million people. I want to know what makes them tick. I'm in their capital city, Tehran, with about 12 million people, and there's a veneer of hatred there. I mean, look at the banner there. It's an 8-story tall American flag made out of dropping bombs and skulls for stars and stripes, saying "Down with America." And we've all heard about death to America and so on. I was in a taxi in that traffic jam there later on that day. It was just silent, and suddenly my driver just bursts out, "Death to traffic." And I thought, no, wait a minute. I thought it was death to Israel or death to America. He said, "Right now it's death to traffic." And I said, "Well, what's with that?" And he said, "Here in Iran, anytime something's frustrating to us and out of our control, we say death to that." And I thought about that. I thought, boy, I'm so glad I'm here to understand this with a little more sophistication than a bumper sticker. So he speaks Farsi, he doesn't speak English, he's translating it directly, and to him he's saying, "Damn that." And I thought, well, have I ever said damn something? Have I ever thought, damn those teenagers? Well, yeah, I have. And, do I really want them to die and burn in hell for eternity? No, it's just after midnight, turn down the music. Damn those teenagers. So when we travel, we gain a little better appreciation of what is the baggage that people are carrying when they respond to us. Think of the baggage we have in our country after 9/11. We're a mighty nation of 300 million people. We lost 3,000 people on 9/11 10 years ago, and it's part of our baggage, just like for our parents it was the Depression and World War II and so on. Well, Iran's got baggage, and we need to understand that if we're going to deal with them smartly. Their baggage, and they've got 1/4 of our population, is losing several 100,000 people when Saddam Hussein, funded by the United States, invaded their country. Now, I don't know if we really funded them, but they think they did, or we did, and that is baggage. And when you travel around Iran, every town's got a vast martyrs cemetery filled with victims of that war. And for me to see a widow sitting on the tomb of a dead loved one, as she's done every week for decades, knowing the propaganda she's lived through and the struggles she's lived through. That's baggage. I got to understand what she's going through if I can understand their country better. I wanted to know what makes 70 million Iranians tick, and I found out a lot by going to Iran and actually traveling there. I was standing on the street corner one day, and a woman crosses the street. She said, "Are you a journalist from America?" I said, "Yeah." And she did one of these little point on my chest things, and she said, "I want you to go home and tell the truth. We're united, we're strong, and we just don't want our little girls to be raised like Britney Spears." I said, "We got something in common here." And I thought about that. What's her baggage? Well, you know, they grew up with the Shah on the throne. And if you grew up with the Shah on the throne, back then they were bragging the miniskirts are shorter in Paris than they are in Tehran. You don't want your little girl to become a boy toy, a crass materialist, and a drug addict. And for good reason, given her situation, she was afraid of that. I wanted to know, what is the core constituency of the fear-mongering party that rules that country? And I learned. It's small town, less educated, fundamentalist parents. Good people motivated by the same thing their counterparts are here in the United States: fear and love. That's a powerful lesson you cannot learn watching TV. You need to go there and meet these people. A great sort of learning area, wading pool for world exploration to me is Europe. It's kind of my beat. I love going to Europe because we have smart, similar people dealing with similar problems and coming up with different answers. We can compare notes. Europe and America are both wealthy, Christian, democratic, capitalist societies. We're all passionate about government by, for, and of the people. I've thought about this, and I think there's a difference. Here in the United States, we're all about government by, for, and of the people via the corporations we own. Now, that's not a judgmental statement. That's just a kind of an observation, and what might make sense for a government to provide a good environment for our corporations to prosper. I think in Europe, they've got government by, for, and of the people in spite of the corporations they own. I think their government goes to bat for the future, for the poor, and for the environment at the expense of their businesses. I'm fascinated by how the United States is really into legislating morality. In Europe, they've got the same victimless crime issues, and they have different approaches to them. And my friends in Europe always remind me a society has to make a choice: tolerate alternative lifestyles or build more prisons. And then they always remind me we lock up 8 times as many people per capita as they do. Either we are inherently more criminal or there's something funny about our laws. Prostitution's a good example. When you travel around Europe, you realize in a lot of countries, prostitution's legal. Prostitution's not good, nobody would say that, but it's a pragmatic kind of harm reduction that motors their laws and policies about this issue. And they would rather have a situation